Well, virtually all of official Washington, Republicans and Democrats, have united behind the idea that the United States has a moral obligation to go deeper into war in Syria. We already have thousands of troops in Syria, though you wouldn't know it from watching the other Robert Mueller-based channels. They're all Stormy Daniels all the time. But it's true we do, and one American soldier's already died in Syria. We've killed hundreds of Russian citizens so far there and lobbed in a series of cruise missiles. But that's not enough, the pundits say. We need a real war, something big and deadly, primarily to avenge the Syrian president Assad's poison gas attack on his own citizens over the weekend. Here's some of the growing consensus on that.
Assad and his inner circle should be considered war criminals, legitimate military targets. If you have the opportunity to take him out, you should.
It's very clear to me that this president, after using such rhetoric on Sunday, has to take stronger military action than we did last year.
We have a leader who is now a war criminal supported by the Iranians and the Russians. That demands a strong and risky response. If the West won't stand up when a leader uses gas multiple times against his own people, we live in a very dangerous world.
So that's the consensus. Last night we asked the obvious questions about it. Before we go to war, are we sure all of this is real? Do we really know that Assad was behind the gas attack? It's not a defense of Assad, but it's an obvious question. How could we know that conclusively so soon after the attack happened? We didn't have any Americans on the ground. And why would Assad do that, given the certainty it would hurt his own interests? And while we're on the subject, by the way, why is a war in Syria a good idea for the United States in the first place? How would it make us safer, happier, more prosperous? Those seem like reasonable questions to us. In fact, the exact questions you'd want your policymakers to ask. But no, they're not asking them, and they're offended to hear them. The first person we asked those questions to, Republican Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi, implied that we were somehow allied with Vladimir Putin just for asking. Other than that, Wicker had no answers at all. It was embarrassing, yet he didn't seem embarrassed at all. Others just denounced us right off the top. Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post tweeted this, quote, "He is insane," meaning me. "Fox is not a news organization, that is all." Noah Rothman of Commentary called this show, quote, "nothing less than undiluted Russian propaganda." Seth Mandel of the New York Post summarized the criticism perfectly when he tweeted this, very simply, "Shut the F up." These are journalists, by the way. No explanation. Of course, shutting the F up is the whole point of tweets like that. They want you to be quiet. They want you to do what you're told. No more questions. Shut up and obey. There's no chance of that, though. Sorry. Glenn Greenwald has been following all of this. He's a founding editor at The Intercept, and he joins us tonight. So, Glenn, leaving aside the real question of how you should respond to Syria and is it a threat to the world order and to us and to its neighbors, I think those are all fair questions. But why the universal attempt in the media here in this country, left and right, to shut down a meaningful conversation about it?
The only time I think that the media praised Donald Trump was almost 1 year ago today when he bombed an airfield in Syria in response to what had been alleged at the time was a chemical attack by the Assad regime. People who hate Donald Trump and go on air every day took a break for 24 hours to proclaim him presidential, because that's what U.S. presidents in their eyes do, is they just drop bombs on other countries with no declaration of war, no reason why U.S. interest or the U.S. borders are at stake when it happens. So I think that's just the ethos in Washington, that not only is it just an inherently good and presidential thing to do to drop bombs on other countries, that's why polls around the world show that the greatest threat to world peace in the eyes of the public around the world is the United States. But also, Adam Smith wrote 300 years ago that the reason people who live in capitals and the elites in countries love to watch their countries bomb other countries is because it gives them a sense of excitement and purpose and kind of this pulsating stimulation. And I think that's a really big part of it. It doesn't matter whether it will accomplish anything. It just makes us feel strong and powerful and purposeful to do, and so just bombs away.
I think that's right. I mean, I think human nature explains a lot of this. I agree completely. But journalists exist to push back against that. Not necessarily against war, but against a heedless rush toward anything. I mean, our job is to be skeptical and ask real questions. Why is no one doing that, and anyone who does is attacked?
So, you know, just about every name that you mentioned in the media who attacked you for raising questions about whether or not we ought to actually go and bomb another country are all essentially neocons. They're the same people who were doing this in 2002 and 2003, saying anyone who asked questions about whether we should actually go to war and remove Saddam Hussein was an admirer of the Saddam regime. They did the same in 2011 when it came time to remove Gaddafi. They said if you're against that war, it means you love Gaddafi and you want to see him slaughter people. It's just the standard tactic. And what we have now is this kind of union between neocons who have now once again kind of been embraced by both the establishment wings of the Republican and Democratic Party and the militarist in both parties, people like Lindsey Graham and lots of Democrats who love every single war. And so this climate arises that you're just supposed to cheer when it comes time to drop bombs on other countries, not ask whether there's evidence to justify it, not ask whether it will do any good, not ask whether it will kill any civilians. And if you do ask those questions, it means you're on the side of America's enemies. It's an incredibly authoritarian tactic that gets used to suppress debate.
Yeah, it's poison. I agree. Glenn Greenwald, thank you, as always.
Good to be with you.
Richard Goodstein is an attorney who advised both of Hillary Clinton's campaigns, and he sports strikes on Syria. Richard joins us tonight. So, look, it seems to me, no matter what conclusion you reach, the first question for everybody ought to be the same, which is, how is this in America's strategic interest? Right. And I haven't met a single person who can answer it or is even willing to try. That's a problem, wouldn't you say?
It would be if there really was no answer. I did see your interview with Senator Wicker last night, and you asked the question, how do we even know Assad was behind this? Right? Because General Mattis basically said we weren't sure. But what we know is that a UN commission saw links between sarin gas that we know is used and it had the hallmarks of what the Assad army had.
I mean, look, I'm totally open-minded.
Right.
I'm sure not here flacking for Assad. My God.
Right.
I just want to be certain that we're acting on the basis of verifiable information. And in the case of this last weekend's attack with the chlorine gas, let's just stop lying. There's no way that we could know in 48 hours, 24 hours, when the cable news shows started pushing for war, that Assad was behind it. So let's stop lying. That's my only point.
Right. Well, I'm not sure who it is. Look, it had all the hallmarks of something that we know Assad did. He was destroying towns willy-nilly. And the notion that somehow the rebels would kill their own women and children and have them foaming at the mouth and so forth to make a point for CNN or Fox, that seems a bit much, right? But I think what we're trying to do is...
Really, it's a bit much. Okay, so the first sarin gas attack took place within a week of the Trump administration saying we're no longer going to try to remove Assad from power. That happened, bam, we went right back to the original policy. This attack took place less than a week after the Trump people said we're going to pull our troops out.
Right.
So, look, I don't know who did it. Right. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm merely saying there's clearly questions that we need to be asking about this, and anyone who does, I'm the living example of this, is shouted down and called a tool of Putin. Like, that's insane.
I wish I took as much pleasure from my critics coming after me as you do, incidentally, so I applaud you for feeling the umbrage that you do.
But it's not about me. Look, I'm attacked all the time. I don't care.
Yeah.
I care about when and where we commit American troops. I have a son who's 21.
Yes.
This is not a joke.
Right. So it's not a question, frankly, of committing troops. Sure, there will be troops. We're talking about degrading their Air Force, degrading their helicopters, doing something, frankly, that we didn't do.
What does degrading mean?
It means basically having so many of their planes...
Up, killing people. Let's not use euphemisms
fine.
here.
Let's blow up and airplanes and helicopters. If there are people in it, so be it. They made their choice to align with Assad, and these are the very people who we seem are dropping. I think we actually have had photographic evidence dropping chlorine bombs on civilian populations.
So who's going to...
So do I feel badly about that? No. Do I think it's something the United States should be doing? Yes. And if we don't...
Hold on. What's the goal? Just let's be really clear. We take Assad out, and don't tell me that's not the plan. When you wage war against a government, you're not rooting for its continuation. Yeah. Who runs Syria?
Yeah. And I'm saying I don't know, actually, that taking him out is the objective. And I agree with you.
So what's the objective? Just continue the war, kill more people?
I think the objective is so that Assad knows that his dropping chlorine gas on people is something where he's going to pay a price.
But we're not sure he did it.
Well, and I think we have to establish whether he did it or not. And the fact is, it shouldn't be a feel-good exercise like it was last year when Trump was basically talking about that great piece of chocolate cake with Xi at the time he was dropping bombs on those runways. That was a feel-good exercise. If we're going to do something, we should do something so that Assad can't do it as easily again.
Assuming, but we don't know that
when
he did do it.
I agree.
So does it bother you when there's universal consensus on the left and among establishment Republicans that we just know? And like, stop asking questions. Let's just go ahead and do this for reasons that we can't fully explain.
Right.
We can't tell you how it's going to make you richer or safer or happier, but just shut up and do it anyway.
Well, it will make us better because we think we need to go after war crimes. The question is whether Assad did it. It has all the hallmarks of Assad. I don't blame people for concluding it did. Do we need to establish with some certainty that it was Assad? Yeah, we should probably do that.
So every time a government does something appalling or kills civilians, we need to bomb them?
No, I think that's...
No. Okay, right.
We can't address every war crime, but those that we can address, yes, I think we should.
Just so we can. Okay, because I can think of... Okay.
Plenty more. I grant you.
Yeah. All right. Richard, thank you.
My pleasure.
My head is spinning. One of the internet's top prostitution sites just shut down, and feminists are delighted. Wait, what? No, they're furious. It's getting confusing in feminist world, so we're going to explain it to you. Is prostitution pro-women, or is it the exploitation of women? We'll give you the new line on that next.